If you're learning history in school, or if you have ever learned history in school, then you will have seen a timeline. This is a line that your teacher drew on the board with time moving from left to right and showing the order that things happened. You know, first the Vikings, then the Tudors, then the Victorians, then the modern age, something like that. I want to explain to you why I think this is a very misleading way of thinking about history. And if this is the way you think about history, then you will find it very hard to understand what is really going on in the world. I don't look at history in this way, and I will give you 3 reasons why I think the timeline version of history is wrong. These are the reasons. Number 1, the way we measure time is not in a line, but is in circles or cycles. 2, the consistent nature of human history. I will argue that things are pretty much the same now as they have always been. And thirdly, from a more philosophical perspective, I will look at the eternal now. So first off, think about how we measure time. All of our measurements of time are based on our observations of things in the sky, the moon, the sun, and the stars, or how changes affect our life on Earth, such as the seasons. But all of these things go in cycles and are renewed. Summer turns to fall, which turns to winter, then spring, and then we're back to summer again. Our months are based on the cycle of the moon, which repeats itself over and over again. Our year is one journey around the sun until we're back to where we started, and we begin again. So it's very important to realize that time itself and the way we measure time is not in a line, but it goes around and around in cycles. So it doesn't make sense for us to measure time in circles and then try to understand history as a line of events. The second way in which school history timeline approach is misleading is that it makes you think that history is a progression from one thing to the next, and that perhaps things are changing and making progress. I would argue firstly against this because more things don't change than do change. If you look at human history as it is taught in school, our history goes back around 8,000 years. Now, I'm pretty sure human history goes back much further than that, but for now let's stick with the last 8,000 years. Now, during that 8,000 years, at any time in that 8,000 years, you will find things to be the same. You will find many things to be the same. Not everything, but many things to be the same. You will find an empire or competing empires. Each empire has a ruling class which is living a life of wealth and luxury because they are able to exploit slaves. Each empire is trying to expand, get bigger and bigger. This causes wars and conflict, and eventually the empire falls and is replaced with a new empire. At any time in history you will find people controlling other people because they have better technology and better knowledge which they don't share. Empires come and go, cultures come and go, civilizations come and go, languages come and go. It goes in cycles, but at any time in history you will find one thing expanding and another thing contracting. I will even argue that technology comes and goes. Thousands of years ago, people on Earth had technology to build incredible temples and pyramids. I expect that knowledge comes and goes. We learn things and then we forget. Think about how much technology and knowledge has changed in the last 5 generations. Then think about how humans have been around on Earth for maybe 200,000 years. That's 8,000 generations. In 8,000 generations, imagine how many times humans could have become very advanced in technology in that time, and then it could all have been destroyed by wars or changes in the Earth's climate. And then it develops again, and then it's destroyed again. History goes in cycles, not in a nice straight line drawn with a ruler on a board. My third point is connected to the first point about how we measure time. We measure time according to the cycles of the sun, moon and stars. But imagine if we couldn't do that. How would we measure time? Imagine living in a place where the sun is always at a 45-degree angle. There is no night and day. It's always the same season, always the same weather. There's no moon or planets. Nobody gets older. Nothing dies or decays. The stars don't move. How would you measure time? The answer is you couldn't measure time. Of course, the place I just described is impossible, but it's important to understand that the human perception of time is based on our reality as we perceive it. So time is not a real or fixed idea. It is just the way we see our lives. Have you ever been to the past? Have you ever been to the future? Of course not. Last Tuesday, when it was last Tuesday, it was now. And when you get to next Monday, it will be now again. In fact, there really is only now. I'm not saying there's no past. I'm not saying all the things that are in the past didn't happen. They did happen, but when they happened, it was now. And when we are now looking at the past, that past exists in our minds, in our books, now. So the past only exists in the now. So there are 3 reasons why timelines are very misleading. I'm not saying a timeline has no usefulness at all. It is useful to know, for example, that ancient Roman culture evolved out of Greek culture, and it's fascinating to think that the Sumerians knew about Jupiter's moons 4,000 years before they were discovered by Galileo. So putting things in order does add colour and interest to history, but this should be done against a backdrop of the cyclical nature of history. Time is going round and round and round, and so is history, my friends.